everyone, my name is Sarah Sykes and I am a teacher at Centenary Heights State High School. Today I'm going to give you a tutorial on how to use OneNote, and this has been designed specifically for our wonderful parents and carers. Firstly, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this tutorial. If you're doing so, clearly you want to be in the best position to help support your student as they're engaging in online learning through OneNote over the course of the next little while we're under these COVID-19 restrictions. Thank you for taking the time. I know that's a sacrifice, and as a teacher and as somebody who's part of our school community, it's so valuable that you're doing that. What are we going to do today? So my objective is to teach you a little bit about how to access OneNote. Okay, that might be something that your student is very familiar with doing, but maybe not yourself so much. The next thing is to talk about the two different methods that teachers use to distribute work on OneNote. Next, I will show you a little bit about the personal OneNote, and that will include some troubleshooting methods for your student. And finally, just a note about staying in contact. So without further ado, let's have a look at accessing OneNote. Now, there are two different ways that you can do this. You can either use an internet browser or you can use the program or app version of OneNote. If you are using an internet browser, you can do that on your student's laptop, on a physical PC computer that you have. You can use it even on a phone, on a smartphone. The thing that is most important, if you're using an internet browser, please use either Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome. Both of those browsers are much more functional than Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer will just cause a whole heap of issues that can be avoided if you just use Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome. Okay, so firstly, go ahead, find the correct browser, go to mis.eq.edu.au, and then that will prompt your student to provide their login information. So that will be their student username and password. Once they have done that, they need to find the apps button, which is 9 dots in the top left-hand corner of their internet browser. So it's got 3 dots across and 3 dots down. That makes a grid of 9. They will then select OneNote and they will choose the correct OneNote for that subject. I'm just going to show you on the school's website a step-by-step tutorial on how to do that. So if you go to the school's website, under curriculum, under accessing OneNote, you can select this step-by-step guide, and that will just give you a visual on what that should look like if you're not very confident or not familiar with that. The second option is that your student might already be used to using the program or app version of OneNote. Now, from a teaching standpoint, there really isn't a big difference. All that matters is that your student can access the work, that they're confident in doing it, and that the program is working well for them. Okay? So for some students, the program and app doesn't work too well and they prefer the browser. Not a worry, just so long as your student has the work. So to access the program or app version, they need to go down the bottom left-hand corner of their computer screen and they will press the magnifying glass, the search section. They will type in OneNote and they will then open it. So I'll just duck out of this PowerPoint quickly. Magnifying glass, OneNote, and they will have OneNote 2016, or it might just say OneNote app. Again, the details of which one it is doesn't matter so long as your student can do their work. Once they select that, it will open up the program for them. So that is accessing OneNote. The next thing that we're going to talk about is the idea of work distribution for students. And so there is 2 different methods that teachers will use to get the work to the student. Now, the first method, I'm going to call it come to the desk. It's no different to being in a classroom where I have a worksheet that I've printed out and I need all of the students to come up, have a chance to stretch their legs and to grab that piece of paper and go back to their desk so that they can complete the work. Now, with that method, they need to open OneNote. Now, today I'm going to give you a demonstration on OneNote 2016 because that's what I use. But if they're using the browser or if they're using the other version of the app, that's okay. So open the app and they're going to go to the content library. So if they go to the content library, that is going to be over the left-hand side and it will say content library. and there will be possibly some different tabs, so they'll need to find the correct one. Now for me, with this example, it would be Unit 1 Festivals. Okay, and in this section you can see that I've got some information all in the middle here, and I've got some tabs down the right hand side. They've got some relevant names. So resources 1 to 9, I would expect to find roughly 9 resources there. Assessment, I've probably got some important information on assessment here. Okay, teachers don't have a directive on how to name pages in this section, so obviously it would just be named most appropriately for that subject or for what content's going in there. Now, with the come to the desk method, the student would be told, okay, so it's Monday, you need to access file number 1 and complete file number 1. So they go to their OneNote, they go to Content Library, the right section, they find file number 1. Okay, and they will need to double click that to open it, and they can then complete the work on Microsoft Word or whatever the file is on their own computer. So what is a festival? A festival is ... Okay, and your student will then save that file as they regularly would to their computer, and the work is then complete. If your teacher is using the come to the desk method, so where they go to the content library to retrieve the work and complete it on their computer, there will often be a second step of sending that work to the teacher. If the work is saved to the student's computer, the teacher cannot see the work, and so they can't give them feedback, they can't check that they're going okay, they can't check that they have completed the work. So it's really important, if the student is doing the work this way, that they are then also following the step of how the teacher wants to see that work. Okay, that might be by uploading it to OneNote, or that might be via email, but they must do step 2. I'll just show you quickly what that looks like as well on the internet version. It's very similar. So you can see down the left hand side we've got the folder information, so we can go Content Library, and it just pops up here. So rather than having the right hand column, it just has a second left hand column, but all very much the same. Okay, double click, download, same sort of functionality as the app. So that is method number 1 of the student coming to the teacher's desk. The second method for work distribution is that the teacher is handing it out to the students. So this is no different to the teacher walking around the classroom and putting the piece of paper on each student's desk. This method involves the student going to OneNote, okay, and rather than going to the content library, they're just going to find their name. If they click on their name, they can click on any of the sections listed beneath it. Now, in this example, you can see that there's nothing in the other parts, and it's only in handouts. Okay, flipping back to the app, going to Paul Sykes, my hypothetical student. Okay, and they can see their work that they have to do. So rather than them having to go to the content library and doing the work on their computer, if they're doing it this way, they'll most likely be doing the work straight on OneNote. Now, with the personal OneNote, where your student has their name, that is shared just between your student and their teacher. So other students in the class can't see that section, they can only see their own. Okay, this is a good way for teachers to be able to check on their students' work, and so you might find that the teacher is immediately putting the work in there and the student is able to write directly onto it, writing my answer. Okay, scrolling on down, a festival is an event, ... Okay, and that workbook is then synced directly to the teacher's OneNote, and they can check that your student has completed the work. Okay, so that is handing it directly to the student. They don't need to go anywhere for it. They get it straight onto their OneNote book. Okay. This method has its advantages in that it's easier for a teacher to check the student's work. There's not an additional step of sending it home. Of having it have to be sent to the teacher. However, sometimes it would be more appropriate to do the other way. For example, if I had a student's draft, I wouldn't be doing it on OneNote. I would have them do it on Microsoft Word and then to send me that, because I can give them more effective feedback, and I keep track of that feedback and print it out very nicely. So there's not a purpose in criticising either method, whether your teacher's using the content library or the student's own section. They will have their reasons for doing it that way, and neither is better or worse than the other. It's just that there might be different purpose in using it one way or the other. Okay. Moving on from work distribution, we're going to look at some of the functionality of OneNote and also some troubleshooting methods for you. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to tell you is if your student is using the browser version and they're having trouble, please check that they're not using Internet Explorer. As I said earlier, Internet Explorer, it just causes some problems. And so as an example, right now in filming this presentation, I know that if I send the students the link to this, it will not work if they're using it in Internet Explorer. Okay, they need to use it in Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome. And there are other instances where Internet Explorer just doesn't do the job properly. So check, are they in Internet Explorer? If they are, get rid of it, go onto Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome. Okay, and that will solve a lot of the problems automatically for your student. The next thing is if they're using the app, to make sure that it is synced. Now what that means is that the program has connected to the internet and is talking back to the system and making sure it has all of the worksheets. So if you're on the app version, you can go here to the left hand side and you can just right click on one of the notebooks and you press Notebook Sync Status. That will open up a little pop-up. Now you might find that something has a cross next to it or like an orange symbol. Green means go, green is good. But if it's red or yellow, something's wrong, then you can just press sync now. It will take a moment to sync, and then once it has finished, it will say up to date, last synced at this time. Okay, that will usually get rid of a number of issues like I can't find my worksheet. Well, it hadn't connected to the internet and now there's a new page here. Great, now your worksheet's there, you can keep going with your work. The next troubleshooting method would be to check that your student has the correct book open. Now, I find that this happens quite frequently on the app when the student has not got the left-hand tab happening. So if they go over to this left-hand side where it says Example OneNote, they can press the down button and they need to press that pin button because that will keep the OneNote notebook title open, and example student Paul Sykes could then see that, oh, no wonder I can't find this worksheet you've told me to do. I'm in my maths OneNote and I'm meant to be doing my English. Okay, so check the name of the OneNote folder that they're in, and that will hopefully resolve another issue. This happens quite a lot when, particularly in junior secondary, when the students are less familiar with using OneNote, or when they might have the same teacher across two subjects. For example, my Year 8 history class, even though I use OneNote every day, sometimes the student will be in the English section instead of the history, and they're telling me they can't find the worksheet. They've just got the wrong book open, that's all. Quick fix, easily sorted. Alright, the next troubleshooting method is typing onto OneNote. Now, sometimes students have trouble actually typing information onto OneNote. This is something I usually find happens more frequently in the browser version than on the app version, but it is very easily solved on both. Essentially, the student just needs to double click and type information. Now, they may find that they can't type properly on top of the worksheet, but they can type somewhere else on the page and then just click and drag that text box down where they would like it to go. Okay, so please encourage them just to try double clicking and typing and then clicking and dragging that text box carefully where they would like it to go. The next thing that I want to show you is just some functionality that OneNote has. Now, it can do much more than just type information. And if you're familiar with using Microsoft Word or other Microsoft programs, this will probably seem very simple to you. But if you go up to this top ribbon, insert, so the student can insert pictures. So they've been asked to create a title page with internet pictures, they can add that on there. If they're in music, they might be asked to record some audio or record some video of them playing an instrument. They can do that right there. If they're in maths, they might like to be inserting equations. If they're in a language, they can be inserting symbols that might be relevant to particular words for their pronunciation. Under draw, they can do more than type, so they can actually highlight pieces of information. Okay, that's quite a small highlight there. They can then erase it to realize, oh, that was not the one I wanted. Okay, they can click back to the type button. They can add different shapes, bits and pieces in there. The other function that's really useful is ink to math, so the student can actually select that and then they can draw the equation like they would handwrite it in their book, and then Microsoft Word will turn it into the typed up version of that. There is a review section for spelling, thesaurus, and the last thing that I would like to show you with the tools that OneNote has is actually a function that I find really useful for students who, especially those who have difficulty engaging with written text. And so I can actually make OneNote or Microsoft Word or any Microsoft program read the text out loud to my students. So all they need to do is up the very top left-hand side, there's this down button with a little line above it. Select more commands. Change it from saying popular commands to all commands. This now comes up in alphabetical order, so you can do a big scroll down to speak. Now on Microsoft Word, I think this is called read aloud. Select it, press add, and then press OK. Then OneNote will actually be able to read aloud to the students. Now it will only work like this on the app version, but I'll give you an example here. So I've highlighted the text and it's got this button up here that looks like a speech, like a text box with a play button.
Please complete.
Please complete. Okay, so your student can have Microsoft programs read aloud to them. Now on OneNote, it will only do that for information that's been typed directly onto OneNote, but if they are wanting to read out this big long text here, for example, it won't work because they can't highlight it. What they can do though is they can double click that file and then do the exact same thing in Microsoft Word.
Carnival of Flowers.
Okay, so that's a really useful tool that can just help students to be able to engage with their learning, especially if they find reading large chunks of text something that's difficult. Finally, the last thing that I want to show you how to do is to add pages and add your students' work to their own OneNote. So this is kind of like if they've done their work on a piece of paper and they want to glue that into their exercise book, and then they give that exercise book to the teacher. Okay, so all they need to do is they need to create a new test page. So I'm just going to call this test 2. Okay, so they press the add page button up there, give it a title, and then they go insert, and they will either select file attachment, that's just like sending an email, it attaches to it and the teacher then downloads the file, or a file printout, and that's like a printed out copy. So if I was to select this document here, okay, that can then open up in OneNote. Okay, and I can see that the student has completed, half of their work. That's a bit odd. Alright, so then I can contact that student, or I can contact the parents and carers just to say, student's only done half of the work, there's something going on, did they have challenges, can I explain some further information to them to help them to continue with their learning? Okay, so that is how your student may need to add pages to their OneNote. Like I said, that is only shared between the teacher and the student. So that's not something that everyone else in the class can see. And if your student was trying to put that into content library, for example, it won't work. They don't have permission to add things in here. They can only add it in their own section. Okay? Now, that is all of my troubleshooting suggestions for you. So the last thing that I just want to talk to you about is staying in contact. Now, I can't stress enough how much we want to stay in contact with our families at this time, especially if they're having any trouble with engaging with their online learning. We don't know if there's a problem unless you let us know. Okay, if your student is having troubles with their laptop, okay, contact us. If your student is having trouble with the work that's being set, contact us. Okay, we can obviously realize, Johnny hasn't done his work from Monday and it's now Wednesday and he still hasn't done the work. Maybe something's going on. But if we were told on Monday that he was having trouble with the work, we could act much faster to help your student. So in order to contact us, if you're trying to contact your student's teacher, okay, if it's around a particular worksheet that they're trying to do, okay, or an activity, whatever it might be that's specifically subject related, please contact their teacher directly via email. It's the most simple way to get in contact with us. That doesn't mean that we have to reply via email. So if they're having trouble and you think a phone call is going to be more helpful for you, just let us know and we're happy to pick up the phone and call, but an email will get to us quickest. Okay, we're not always in our staff room close to a phone, but we always have our computer with us at this moment in time. If it's a matter that is specifically around assessment, contact that student's teacher. They might have to get in contact with the head of department as well. If it's a problem around their physical computer usage, okay, they're having trouble with it, again, contact that student's teacher via email. And they will contact IT if it's not something that they can solve, and someone will get back in contact with you. That might be the teacher, that might be IT themselves. If it is a concern that's more of a pastoral concern, the first point of call, same as it has always been, would be that student's pastoral care teacher, and then up the line potentially to a head of year or further on to deputies and administration. Okay, if you're needing to contact someone, email is always going to be very quick. Our phone lines are still open though. Okay, so if you're wanting to talk to someone in person, you can always try phoning, but it's just not always the easiest way to get in contact with a particular teacher. I think that is everything I can give you today. Thank you so much for taking the time. Again, I know that this was a long tutorial, but hopefully it's something that makes you feel confident that you are able to help your student if they're having trouble accessing OneNote, if they're having trouble with completing work, and just reminding you that we want to stay in contact with you. Please always keep those communication lines open with us. If there's any way we can help, we're always going to be jumping on board to try and do that in the most efficient and safe and practical way we possibly can. Thank you so much. Have a great day.